All right, well, I'm going undercover. This is my third video in a row, so this time I put my jacket on. So let's go get it. Is a hippopotamus a hippopotamus, or is it a really cool opotamus? Hey, that's the first video I've started with a joke, so hey, that's the best thing I got. So here we go. We're going conditional probability. Should be a good one because it's a skill that lets us go further into the data than we can without it. Let's just put it that way. All right. So probability. Well, let's start here. This is the symbol. So notation alert. Well, first of all, probability uses capital letters. So this is the probability of A, and you got this long line and then a B. And how you read that is you say that's the probability of event A occurring given that event B has already occurred. That's this. So you're assuming that B has already happened, and then you're asking yourself, what is the probability of A happening? Now that we know B has happened. So let's go back to our Titanic data and see what happens. So this says the probability of survived given that first class has occurred. Okay, so questions like this would be like a randomly selected passenger from first class. What's the probability they survived? But what it does is if first class has occurred, then second and third class are not part of this analysis, because this specifically says they're from first class. And so the denominator is not going to be the whole boat. The denominator is just the number of people in first class. At which point you have to say, well, how many survived? Okay, so here's our survived category. There's first class. So 201 out of the 324 survived. Beautiful. I'm going to put it to a decimal in a second. I'm going to just move on with fractions for now. Okay, so probability of survive given that third class happened. All right, so randomly selected passenger from third class. What's the probability they survived? All right. Well, there's only 709 possible outcomes. That's everybody in third class. There's 709. Of those 709, how many have the characteristic of having survived? That's 181 of them. Beautiful. So lovely. Okay, that's what we're looking at here. Now, as I've said before, it's a bit harder to compare fractions than decimals. Like, which one of these numbers is bigger or smaller? Now, of course, the more you know about fractions, you say, oh, well, the denominator is bigger and the numerator is smaller, so this is clearly going to be less of a probability. But it's best to go to the calculator, okay? Because, with a fraction, the bigger this number is, and it's going to get closer to 1, right? So if that number gets bigger, it's going to get smaller. So we got 201 divided by 324 equals 0.62. Multiply that by 100 if you want it as a percent, 62%. 181 divided by 709 gives us 0.255. If you want, 620. All right, and we're done. But I do want to go, before I say adios, let's just go to this problem, which is what's the probability that somebody on the Titanic survived? So a randomly selected passenger from the whole boat. Now we have the whole boat is in play, all three classes, 1,317 people. Now, what's the probability that somebody survived? Well, there's 500 people on the boat who fit that description of having survived. So, again, comparing all these fractions, it's probably best to make it a decimal or a percent. And we get 38%. Okay, so we go 0.38. Maybe I'll put another 0 there. And I raise this point because what I want you to take from this is the probability that somebody on the boat survived is 38%. But there ain't nobody on that boat where that was actually their probability, right? There wasn't a single person who actually had 38. Because first class had 62. And people in third class had 25. And I don't know second class, but probably somewhere there in the middle. And so conditional probability actually allows us to have a better understanding of the data. So it's like, okay, that's how many people survived. Well, how many people survived given first class? Oh, okay. Oh, so maybe there was a preference to first class. It appears that way, but there's probably some other analysis we want to do before we come to that conclusion, but the data is certainly suggesting that on the Titanic, instead of it being a 38% chance of survival, that it actually depended on class. Excellent. Conditional probability, stay hip, be kind to each other, and I'll see you around, okay? Okay.